Tenney.
Gentlelady is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to thank the gentleman for yielding so much time for me in favor of this legislation that I co-authored with my colleague, Ms. Dalbeni, on this bipartisan piece. H.R. 5723, the Expanding Oversight of Opioid Prescribing and Payment Act of 2018. Mr. Speaker, in my district and across the nation, the opioid epidemic has ravaged communities, torn apart families, and ended the lives of everyday Americans. Opioid abuse and drug-related deaths are rising at alarming rates. In my rural New York district, drug-related deaths rose over 350% in the short period between 2012 and 2016. Each day, I continue to hear from families across the 22nd district who have been impacted by this epidemic. They share deeply moving and personal stories of loss and struggle, and they always urge me that more needs to be done. Mr. Speaker, they are right. This is why the People's House has taken significant bipartisan action to pass record funding for addiction treatment and prevention and to stop the flow of illicit drugs coming across the border. This is not the time to let up. During an opioid roundtable that I held in my district, I heard from members of the community who told me that often an opioid prescription is the only option for pain management offered after a complicated surgery or a procedure as routine as a root canal. This anecdotal evidence is backed up by the hard truth that in 2016, there were 66.5 opioid prescriptions per 100 people. Mr. Speaker, that amounts to more than 214 million total opioid prescriptions. The Expanding Oversight of Opioid Prescribing and Payment Act seeks to find out what is fueling these prescriptions. This bipartisan bill requires the Medicare Payment Advisory Committee, or MedPAC, to research and identify adverse incentives in the Medicare and Medicaid programs that lead to an overprescription of opioids versus readily available non-opioid alternatives. Medicare and other insurance providers often do not cover non-opioid alternatives for pain, and this legislation seeks to understand why. Once we're able to understand the cause, we can change Medicare policy to reduce demand for opioids, to address chronic pain, and provide patients with a safer, non-addictive, non-opioid alternative for pain. Opioid overdose is now the leading cause of death for Americans under 50. We must take action. Mr. Speaker, combating this epidemic starts by eliminating any incentives that cause our constituents to become addicted to opioids and other prescription drugs in the first place. I want to thank my colleagues, Ms. Dalbeni, Mr. McKinley, and Mr. Sanford for joining me in this bipartisan effort, and appreciate the work of Chairman Brady and everyone every member of the Ways and Means Committee who worked to help us get this far. And I want to say special thank you to Representative Roscom from Illinois for providing me with this opportunity to speak on behalf of this important legislation, and I yield back the balance of my time and ask that my colleagues support this legislation. Thank you.